The one major difference that I saw was that for those productions that don't have budgets, they always expect you to go above and beyond. And most of the time when they expect you to go above and beyond, it's a thing of, there's only so much I can do, you know?
I've also found on like really low budgets, they don't really know why their quality might be bad if the location, for instance, was loud. They're like, can't we make this less noisy? And we're like, no, we're in a construction site. I can't take out the construction site. And they're like, no, and we also want it tomorrow. Why can't you do this? So yeah, I feel like the bigger the budgets, the like more considerate when it comes to that.
Hi, Mark here.
And I'm Yaku.
And welcome back to Department Spotlight. It's the show where we talk to our friends and colleagues about their experiences in the South African film industry.
Today, we will be talking about sound design. So we have 4 of our friends and colleagues here to talk about their experiences in sound with all the different aspects. So I also do sound. I studied it at After Film School along with everybody that we're going to have here. So let's get into it.
My name is Piloyame Mr. P.D. Taunyani. I am an on-set sound recordist as well as an aspiring artist.
I'm Melissa. I record on set and I do post-production sound.
Cool, my name's Kevin, and at this point in time I am a junior sound editor.
My name's Natasha and I do on-set and post for sound.
To start things off, can you guys tell me why you got into sound and did you not see the memes?
So for me, it was more of I got to film school, not too sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do LP, but I changed my mind along the way. And then as I bumped into all the options, I fell in love with editing and sound. And I feel like sound won over my heart. And that's how I actually started with sound. That's how I actually began with sound through film school. And actually learning more about it. I might say I did bump into some of the memes, but I didn't pay too much attention at the time. But it's proven to be a good journey thus far.
For myself, I wanted to do editing. I was not about the sound life until I actually got to it. I still didn't like it because at film school, I did the classes. I'm like, it's just sound. And then it came to my first like post-production session. And I was like, this is actually amazing. Like just what you can do. And then I was like, I think I'm going to do this rather than editing. And I don't regret that decision.
I guess we were all like similar in a sense where we wanted to do something else and then got like a pathway into sound. I went there for music. I was a music guy, and then it was just something in the sound classes clicked for me. And then I was just like, you know, I'd actually rather I enjoy this much more at this point in time.
So I'm very much like Kevin. I also went to After to do music. And I already had gotten my grade 5 in music. So when I got there, they were like, you're kind of wasting your time being here. So in sound, I actually took because I would learn more. And then I just ended up falling in love with it.
Yaku?
Yeah, I also had a similar thing. I don't know if you guys know. I did my undergrad. I did my undergrad in sound design and visual effects. But I think for me, it was just sound is a very technical thing. And I tried directing and all these other jobs in first year, in that, you know, when we got to like test out all the other things, and I got really bad marks, but I really enjoyed it. But then it was that thing where I'm from Bloemfontein, and it was a thing where you should. Oh, really? I actually came back to Bloem for the lockdown. So technical stuff has always really intrigued me, and I really like sound because you're on set and you're in post, and it's a fun time.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of the memes actually before I started. I only started seeing people that hate the sound guy or sound girl like once I started doing it. So where do you guys think that comes from? Why do people hate the sound guy?
They don't know how important it is to the final product, I think. So they're all visuals, especially on set. It's all about the
Yeah.
camera. It's all about
Yeah.
how they think they can cut it together. And then later they get to post and they're like, oh yeah, sound. That's a thing.
Yeah. But I feel like it's more of a, maybe they don't respect the aspect that they just hear audio, they think that's it. Because there are no shots involved or angles involved. They think, okay, now just hit record, you're done. I feel like that's why people disrespect sound a lot, because they feel like there's not much to it, but it's a whole nother world.
Yeah, they say sound is 50% of a production, and me and Jaco were speaking a while back, and we think that it's perhaps even more than 50%. You don't even realize how important it is. Maybe let's go into, do you guys prefer on-set in production or post more? Where do you guys love to work in magic?
Well, personally, I've fallen in love with on-set. I prefer on-set more than post, just because the live action itself. That's just me.
I prefer post-production because I feel like now it's my time to work with it. I prefer to have been the on-set recordist as well, so I know that it's fine what I'm getting. But I prefer like the creativity that you get in post-production.
Kevin and Alyssa being like really quiet. They're like
contemplative.
I like being in a dark room, so post is for me. It's just, you get to like accentuate things more. You get to like play around with things more. You get to, like Mark said, it's like the 50% that you get to put like your stamp on. So that's why I prefer it.
I think so last year I only did post-production, and you do miss set. Like when I finally got back onto set, it was like you feel at home. So I don't think I have a favorite. It's like if I spend too much time on set, I want to be in the dark room. If I spend too much time in the dark room, I want to be on set.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think I would be able to do just post. I love the post. I really do. It's one of my favorite things to do. But if I don't get to also be on set ever, I don't think I would be able to keep being a filmmaker. I don't. That's something that I've realized. Let's talk about on-set first, because I know all of us have the experience of doing the sound on set. What are some of the most sort of difficult situations that you've had to record in?
For me personally, because I've worked on Mzansi Magic Film, working in the township is very difficult because you cannot control any element except for maybe the street you're working on. But besides that, you can't control anything else. So it's very hard. It's very hard. But you try by all means to, work with what you have. Try and get your AD to assist as well. But yeah, it's a very difficult situation, especially working in the township.
Yeah, I can think. I have very little experience in a township. We once shot. I was the VFX guy, or I was VFX assistant, but we shot in like a informal settlement, and there's just so many people moving around. Yeah, it was like this sort of action movie type thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, Mark was on. I even forgot Mark was on. But yeah, it was like I remember thinking like, I'm so glad I'm not the sound on this.
We once shot in a factory. We once worked in a I don't even know what they were making, but all the machines were on. We couldn't have them turned off, so all the sound was basically unusable. So that was a nice ADR session.
Yeah.
I shot in Kempton Park Hospital, and it's empty. There's nothing in there, like reverb for days, and no windows, so interior sounded exterior. So that was my graduation film. The whole thing was just ADR, like couldn't use any of it.
I think the most difficult I had was probably last year. For my honors film, we shot a film in like a rural area, and the house we shot in was like a small, like the house was the size of a small bedroom. So that was like the size of the room itself was the most difficult to deal with, because like you have your cine and your director, and then I think there were 3 actors, a kid as well, which is also a difficult aspect in itself. And it's just like there's no room to move, there's no room for error at all. And it was just super difficult, but it was a fun set though.
So in that situation, who did you dictate that would stay on set or in the room itself, and who had to leave?
We set up the dits and stuff outside in this like second room, and then made sure we spoke to the AD and told them like only 3 people on set or 4 people are, or the actors mainly, and then me, cine, and then first cine assist. So like that was the director wasn't even on set. She had to go and watch it in the room next door. So that's how small it was.
Well,
So maybe a few questions that come from that. Obviously, sometimes you just have to make do, as is the way of filmmaking. But what are perhaps some considerations that can happen in pre-prod, where I know, especially in film school, a lot of people like didn't consider sound in the pre-production phase when they're sort of, for example, choosing location. And you get to location, it's like, well, we can't use any of this, as Natasha said. And so what are some considerations that can perhaps be made in pre-prod for sound?
Well, from my point of view, I told them every location scout we go on, I want to be there. I want to like say in it. We went to about 4 locations or 5 maybe, I don't remember. But a lot of them wouldn't allow us to shoot on it. And then we had like 2 final ones that were set, and then the one fell out. So we had to shoot in this one. So like from that point of view, it's like the best thing you can do is go to location scouts and dictate like, and check your surroundings and go on specific days to find out if there's like a school that's down the road that might happen, or if there's construction nearby, etc., type of things like that. It's like you as a sound guy need to dictate to yourself and to the crew in a way that like lets them know that it's just as important to you as it is to them for this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I shot at like a really big house once, and it was super, super reverberant. It was like concrete flooring, like no carpets, no anything. There was a big metal art piece in the corner, super reverberant. So yeah, if I didn't go on location scout, I wouldn't have brought a lot of sound blankets and
right.
And I just put them everywhere. They're everywhere. Like all the BTS is just blankets on the floor, blankets on the walls, in every single part of the room that wasn't in frame. I was just like, we need to cover this up. We need to do something about it.
That's a good tip, I think, as well. Like if you like exactly what Natasha's saying, like do what you can, even though it's not
Ideal.
Yeah.
But I think the pre-prod is mandatory, but from my side it's been a bit different, because the bulk of the work I've done leaving after has been more corporate and like working for NGOs and stuff. So when they call me up, it's more of I'd get the call maybe 3 days before, and I'll get maybe the call sheet maybe a day before. So there's not much pre-prod I can do. So it also, pre-prod helps a lot, man. It really helps a lot, especially if you have the time and the place and you know what's going to happen and you know where the location is. It helps a lot. But in my situations, it's been more of okay, I get on set, have to assess the situation and do the best I can with what I have. And it's been a hassle, but it's a learning curve as well. I've learned a lot from it.
I want to agree with Mr. P, because I've been working as a production manager also on Mzansi films, and they choose the location because it's convenient for the crew, like where they live and aesthetically. They don't think of sound. They get the sound person like a few days before, and then
That's true.
As soon as they arrive on set, that's the first time they're seeing
that's 100%
the location.
True. Yeah.
If you're working more contract or freelance, you don't have a say in pre-prod. You are just technical crew that come on the day. Especially also with all the camera assistants and that, you get called 1 or 2 days before and you have to figure it out on the spot.
You guys were speaking about going on these sets and stuff. Let's talk about equipment quick. If you could, like, when you go on these shoots, what do you prefer? What do you tell them? Do you just take like a shotgun, or do you like to lapel each person? What in terms of equipment? What do you guys
personally? I've seen that go prepared with everything, lapel, shotgun, everything. It works best because especially the situation me and Alyssa have been speaking about, where I get on set, I don't know what's happening. Obviously, you read the script beforehand, but you don't know what they're trying to shoot first and whatnot. So just be prepared. So have everything on deck. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you just like record everything separately as much as you can.
Yeah.
Basically.
So Natasha was saying that she used blankets to stop reverb, for example. And you guys are saying that as sound guy, you guys have sort of been called like 3 days before. So do you have anything, maybe it's not a material object, or maybe it's just like an approach that you go with to approach those sort of unforeseen circumstances may they arrive? Is there anything else you have in your toolkit?
I feel like the only way you could prepare for such things if literally you went location scouting. But in such situations where they call you 3 days before, your basic tools or your actual device is the only thing you can prepare, and having all your recording equipment, that's your preparation. So I'll give you an example. Getting a call 2 days before, and you, like she said, you're shooting in a factory, you're not too sure whether you can ask them to switch off the machines. You're not too sure whether you'll be shooting in a small room or not, where you can use blankets to stop the reverb. So yeah, it's a very tricky situation where I don't really think you can actually have something you say, okay, you could have blankets in your car already, have them prepared for such a situation, if that's what you mean. I think that's possible. You could always have blankets in case there's a room that you can actually use them in. But yeah, your recording devices are pretty much it.
I think in my experience, there have been moments where clients have asked me to boom, and I'm like, cool. And then I get there and I can't actually boom because the cameras are constantly moving and I'll constantly be in shot. So I've made this really shitty coat hanger wire shock mount for my microphone so that I can get them from below. And I keep that in my car because I never know. People don't really think about all the logistics of everything. So I have that always on me.
That's very cool. Yeah, just make do with what you have. Doesn't matter what your budget is or where you are. Just get the best sound possible. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, for sound, you could always ADR. It's not ideal, but I mean, a lot of big movies used to just do ADR. They would because those cameras were loud. Those film cameras, especially in the beginning. So they would just get something to sync with and then just ADR everything. So if we could speak about ADR, like I once shot under a highway, literally there in Newtown. Yeah, shot there in Newtown under the highway, and it's just what are you gonna do? You just get reference and then you do ADR. So if we're speaking about ADR, what are your techniques? Do you have any like sort of tips, or how do you approach it?
I normally make the director show up to get them back into character. A lot of the time I've had actors come back and we're like, cool, play the video. Okay, do you want to watch it again? Okay, now try and we'll record and see if you get it. And a lot of the time it's completely different. I've had actors who just want to hear the line, hear how they said it, and then repeat themselves. I've had actors come on, we're just like, cool, we can't even see your mouth, just say the line. And they say it completely flat, like, oh, it's you again. And we're like, no, you're happy. Oh, it's you again. And it's like, okay, director, come help me out, please. And I think that's probably the most helpful experience I've had, is just getting someone who can get them into the right headspace.
It falls down to preparing your actor before, sending them cue sheets, letting them already familiarize themselves with what they need to do. Also, like Natasha said, having a director, it's not always going to be the director, but sometimes it's your producer, just someone who knows the script and knows the characters well enough to just give direction.
That's actually really interesting. I haven't even thought about that, just sending the stuff to the actors before so they can practice on their own. That's genius, actually.
It is.
I mean, that would make everything so much easier if they just know already what they need to do.
And like prep your
good.
sessions, like have markers everywhere, have beeps, and have tracks for every sentence. Not really, that's going to make your session a mess, but like for every character have their own tracks, just separate it, keep it organized.
Kevin, do you have any hot ADR tips?
Because I'm in the same place Alyssa was, the cue sheets are the number one thing, like with time code exactly where the thing starts, like, and the 3 beeps thing is also a lifesaver because it gets them into this like rhythm. The 3 beeps is just like a 1, 2, 3. And
it's like a countdown before they speak.
And then it's like, so they like prepare themselves. And then another tip is mic setup and placement in the studio. So they're like actors comfortable and they know where they are and they understand where the mic is, and that they don't look into the mic, they look at the screen where you're recording. And it's all about preparedness, like preparing your session, preparing the mics, preparing volume and dynamics, and making sure that that's all correct. But like Alyssa said, the cue sheets are because they get them the day, like the director or producer will be like, cool, we want to do ADR for these specific scenes. So then dialogue editor will go in and find the scenes and then find the exact time codes where they are and then send that out to the producer, and then the producer sends it out to the actors. And then they have, like, I think it depends on the date, obviously they have a certain amount of time to prepare.
Awesome.
Rad. Perhaps going on from ADR is recording Foley. Any tips there? What's your experience with recording your own Foley sound effects? That type of vibe?
Foley is depending on the type of film, if you can get a Foley artist in, or if you can do it yourself. But like the best tip for Foley is you don't need an expensive Foley stage. If you can come prepared as much as you can with like all the different clothing that you need, like preparedness is the number one key to it. Because when it comes to mixing, you can still like clean it up and cut out external noise to an extent, obviously. But yeah, like Foley is a difficult one because obviously it depends on the type of film, TV show that you're doing. Like from my experience that I've been doing, we didn't have a Foley artist for a while, so we had to take pre-recorded stuff. You basically dialogue editor comes to you and like they're like, okay, cool, this scene all need Foley, and then they're like, you'll go through it and you'll mark the session. You'll what they call spotting. So you like spot specifics where you need to put stuff, and then you separate it into specifics, specifics, clothing, and feet, and then you go about that, and then you have to sit and do the tedious job of syncing every single footstep. First, finding the right sounding if it's pre-recorded, but if you get the like option to have a Foley artist, then go for it. But then you sit there and you have to edit, and like this is the thing that I've learned the most in the past like 5 months, was sitting and putting footsteps for every single foot that moves on the screen. And it's super, like it can become tedious, but it's worth it at the end when you hear the final mix. Like it plays a pivotal part.
Footsteps for me is the hardest. Like I can never pull off footsteps. Like everyone, like at Sound Surfers, they knew like Alyssa can't do footsteps, because as much as I tried, I never got it right. I don't know why, and I'm just now record footsteps on set really well, so I don't have to redo them for Foley.
Yeah, I was about to say, like when it comes to Foley, I always try to get on set. I don't want to
Same
spend
here.
time in Foley, especially
Same
because
here.
I haven't really worked on anything with a budget to get a Foley artist in, so it's normally
True.
me.
Yeah.
If someone's not talking and they're walking, I'll boom their feet.
Yeah.
I don't want to have
Mic up
to
a
try to
second
make
boom.
the surfaces sound like the same
Yeah.
thing. It's always much easier
Yeah.
to try to get as much on set as possible.
Yeah. If I may ask, so a similar situation where on set I usually record my own Foley, but with post in mind, because I don't do post. So let's say because I worked on a web series recently, and I did exactly that, where on set I was recording all the Foley's footsteps, doors opening, such things, and I sent it in, logged and whatever. But when it gets to you in post, this is just a question from me to you as a post person. Do you even use the Foley I give you, or you prefer to re-record?
I'd always prefer to use the on-set because it always fits the scene better.
Yeah,
because then you have to, because if you're trying to do Foley, you have to make it fit the surfaces and the size of the room, which you can do reverb, but it's just so much more time consuming. So if you have a good set recording, always choose the set recording.
Yeah, because that's what I always try and do, where whenever I'm on set, I try and get the extra Foley with post in mind. No one has to ask me to do it. I just do it by myself. But I always ask myself, do they actually use it in post? Because they don't tell me, yo, your Foley was good, or yeah, the footsteps matched, or, it's just a me thing where I'm like, okay, for post, let me just, record the Foley and send it through.
You should, like, when you're recording it, just be like, okay, this is Foley footstep, take 1. Also tell me if you used it. And then...
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
I've actually went from the recent stuff that we did, there was some stuff that where I like to do that as well. Kevin worked on 3 of them. No? Yeah, 3 of them with 2 of them with us.
2 of them.
And sometimes, especially because I did for the ones that he didn't do, I just did it myself. And sometimes there's a lot going on sets, and then you just forget to get some certain stuff. And then I literally just go back to location if it's not, somebody's grandma's house. But then I just go back to the location a few days later and then just record it again. Do you guys, if you get into that situation, would you go back to the original location, or do you just in your living room try to recreate the Foley? Well, not in your stage or wherever your studio, wherever you're shooting.
Oh, I can't say much on Foley, but I can say something on what's this, on roomtone, where I always try to get the roomtone on set, but if I can't get it that day or within the week, I always try to go back and record it. I haven't done it with Foley because all my Foley has been done on set on the day we shoot. But with roomtone, I have done it where what's this? You get it at a later stage because I couldn't get it that day.
Yeah, cool. So talking about roomtone, I think that might be the biggest source of all the memes. What happens when you forget roomtone? And also, okay, wait, no, let's break it up. What happens when you forget roomtone? Like Piliamo was saying, what happens when you forget? Do you just find a stock sound or try to find a stock sound? Or do you just try to record it again? What happens if you can't go back? You can't go back at all to the place.
Wow.
But you need it.
Yeah. I've never been in that situation where I can't go, or where I have had to retake it and I couldn't go back to the location. But roomtone is always my main priority, just because that's the way we were taught. So roomtone, and I've been in multiple fights with ADs because of roomtone. But I was taught that roomtone is king, and I always make sure I get my roomtone, no matter the fights, no matter if they tell me, okay, we give you 1 minute, I get it. So roomtone, I make sure that I always get it.
With stock ambience, it's layering. Get a good ambience library and layer indoor, outdoor, like interior, exterior ambience. I think it's more in post-production creating that environment that you don't feel when you're actually on set.
I think in my graduation film we were shooting, it's like a big drag race track. And it was super windy, and there were bugs, and there were tractors in the distance. So all of my room tone didn't really match the dialogue at all. So I managed to like get snippets between their pauses, and I built my own dialogue, my own ambience track. It was hell, but room tone was too much to like use. I think it worked in like a few scenes when they were more interior, but because of the wind and the bugs and the everything in the entire world making noise, it was too inconsistent. So I ended up building it from like in between the dialogue.
I remember Yaku's done that a lot.
I've done that a lot, but not because the ambience didn't work, just because I forgot to record it. That happens to me a lot. I actually even I forgot to record an ambience for one of these shorts that we did, and because we did all the post over like November, December. So for December, I came back to Bloemfontein and then without recording the ambience, and I was like, oh crap! So I literally just used my kitchen for like that kitchen in that house, or I used our like backyard for the outside night ambience or whatever. And but after I did so many Franken ambiences. Please hire me as a sound still. I promise I've learned. To all the future employers out there. Okay, so we were touching a bit on stock sounds and stock ambiences and stuff. What are some of your guys' favorite libraries online? Do you pay for them? Do you try to use free stuff? How do you go about finding sounds online?
Freesound.org. Hey.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah. I know, I think it's called Sound Ideas, has a pretty decent Foley, pre-recorded Foley sound library.
And like the BBC library is free to the public now as well. So you can also download that.
There's quite a few free things online, actually, weirdly enough. If you just search deep enough, you can find it.
Yeah, and there's a guy I follow on Instagram, and his job is to go record these libraries, and then at the end of his shoot, then he'll upload a link on his Instagram where you can go download his link, of what he's recorded.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been using we started using Artlist for music, for obviously all these YouTube videos and stuff. And they recently added a sound effects library to that for just a little bit extra. So I paid for that. It's still growing, so it's not as in depth as I would like. So that's what we've been doing. It sounds like the simplest thing, but whooshes always. I mean, that's more sound effect, but whooshes always sound terrible. I don't know if you guys have found this from the libraries. It's always like fiery whoosh or airy whoosh, and then there's a ghost sound, and it's like, I just want the whoosh. That's it. You know what I mean?
You did it perfect now. Maybe we should record that.
I should just do my own whooshes sound.
Yes, do your own. Make your own library.
Put that online.
Going off from that, it's something we don't have in our questions here, but it sort of reminds me of what we're speaking about. Like whenever I think about sort of sound designers making crazy sounds, I think of like Ben Burt and making his awesome Star Wars sound effects. And so maybe my question is, what's like the raddest thing that you guys have created out of just a bunch of scraps? You know what I mean? Like, what have you sort of like, you think about like the way that a sound designer would be like, oh, that's actually the sound of an elephant that's been reversed and tossed this effect on. Like, what's the raddest thing that you guys have made?
An animation where like there was a gun that sucked out your soul and turned you into stone. And I was like, I don't know what this sounds like. I ended up using salt being poured onto sand and then onto a teacup and then reverse and pitch shift and all these things. And it ended up sounding like really cool. Like, amazing. I was just surprised it actually worked, because I was like, let's see. And it was just like salt with a whole bunch of things.
That's so cool.
That's so wild.
Okay, I've never done it practically, but I remember I was watching a scene and I was like, I would love to try out singing and reversing it. It was for a horror. Singing and reversing it and just trying to hear how it sounds. Maybe it would sound creepy. Please don't steal my idea. No, I'm kidding. You can use
It's out
it,
there
but yeah,
now.
that's something I've always wanted to try. Where singing and then you just reverse that singing. Try and make it,
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
I made like for experimental, we had like a floating orb that the sky follows, and I took different frequencies of color because the orb was made out of color, and I pitch shifted all the like tones to sound like the colors, and then it sounded like pretty cool and electronic and not something you could find on a stock library.
Wow.
Oh, that reminds me, like I also did an experimental. I forgot about experimental for some reason. And they went into like a painting, and the painting was made of plants. Everything was plants. So I ended up finding recordings of people recording the electromagnetic waves in the leaves of plants. And I ended up using that. And it also was like quite electronic, but it was all plants. And it was just, it was very fun. Yeah.
Awesome. I haven't really done any sort of like experimental stuff. I've mostly I've had a lot of fun though. I did that thing where you buy a bunch of, carrots and lettuce and then you just like break them apart and pull them and slap them, and I did that whole thing. One of those studios at After got so dirty it was it was actually kind of funny, but yeah, that's one of my favorite memories from After as well, just like tearing apart all these like fruits and vegetables and slapping it and lifting up and throwing it, and yeah, it's all these things that you wouldn't even know goes into the film, but you hear it and it makes a difference.
Oh yeah, speaking of experimental, so my experimental film was based on time travel, and Kevin, funny enough, you were part of it, right? Or were you part
Wasn't
of
the time travel on your graduation? The band was your
Yeah, graduation, not experimental. Sorry,
The
but you were
band
part of
one was
my
your-
experimental. Yeah, but for graduation, it was based on time travel. So, funny enough, the whoosh where he goes back in time, I incorporated breaths. Like each time he goes back in time, it feels like he's taking his last breath. So that's something I played around with as well.
Well, for
That's so cool.
graduation, for the animation I had to do, because it was based about cancer cells in the body, and Ivan gave me permission to record the inside of my mouth. So that was the most like interesting thing I've ever got to do.
How do you
Sorry to he has to use that mic ever again, but anyway.
Relationships with other departments. Like I know one of my favorite collaborations, third year editing, was with Kevin, because we'd just hang out and like he'd come sit in while I was editing, and then I'd go send the edit up to him, and then we'd just sit together, and like we really had this cool like back and forth, and we started sort of developing this like shorthand about certain things. And I just wanted to ask, maybe what's a good relationship you've had with another department, or perhaps what's a relationship you wish was stronger in terms of maybe post or production, to make sound that's sort of not easier but sort of more smooth?
Well, for me, especially when going back to AFDA, in my third year, my relationship with my director was very strong. It was quite strong. So that bond actually helped me understand a lot of things, especially about what his perspective of the film is or was. And that actually helped me a lot. Now, when it comes to a relationship that I would have wanted to be a bit stronger was, as you said, one with the editor as well. But my problem is my editor would always come up to my session and try and tell me how to do things, which was, it did not sit well with me at the time. I can, what's this? I can accept creative criticism where you're trying to better me, but not like, in a sense, trying to belittle me or make me feel like I don't know my job. So in that sense, I would have liked to have tweaked that. And if that bond was stronger, I feel like the film would have been stronger as well.
I think there was this movie, and it has not been released yet. There was the main actress, she's like suffering a sexual assault thing. And now I have a lav mic on her and I tell her like, I can just take it off if you want. I'd known her quite a while before that and like spoke to her a lot on set. And I think it really helped her to know it was me who was listening to her, because she said, no, it's fine, because you need to like obviously make sure it's okay. But I think the fact that she was like really comfortable with me also helped her just perform, because I think some actors don't remember that they're mic'd. Some actors will just kind of say whatever whenever, and you'll listen and you'll be like, oh, that's okay. But she was one of those actors who was always kind of like, I'm constantly being watched and listened, and I felt like that was very hard for her. And I don't think a lot of the time people like consider the relationship between the sound person and the actor, but it's something to think about, because I mean, you can hear them. Like, you're not supposed to be listening between takes, but a lot of the time you do overhear a lot of stuff that they say. So I think that was something like an interesting experience, and I think that relationship was important.
And just to add on to that, one thing that I've come to realize is actually was this, when you spoke about the comfortability of the actor as well, because I'm a male and I've bumped into a lot of female actresses where I always ask for permission before I mic them up. And a lot of the time, I get a reaction where, wait, that's the first time any sound person has ever asked permission to touch me or mic me up. So comfortability is a very important thing.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's a very respectful thing. I mean, a lot of people just, go, okay, this is my job, I should just do it. Or they feel too awkward, so they just don't address it at all. But, I mean, obviously, it's very important to make sure that everybody's comfortable with everything that's happening always. I mean, in every situation ever. But especially in sound with microphones and stuff. I've also had that very strange, like the first time I got to use the lapels at AFTA, I just had the two actresses and it was like, okay, how are we going to do this? But they were obviously, I'd also known them for a while, so it was like, it was easier. I think it was easier for them to just let me do it than me like, okay, I'm But yeah, definitely being respectful and asking and getting consent. Especially as the male is very important. Any other collaborations, maybe in post?
I'll definitely second what Mark said with the editing thing. We just had this like, I don't know what it is, like, we had like telepathy with one another where we just like knew what, like, even on set together, we knew like Mark would like look at me if something was like off with an act or something, he'd look at me with dialogue, or if he was like, is like the footsteps too loud, or like he would always like on set it was perfect, and in post he was always in studio with me, like even helped me do the foleys, and it's always like nice to have this idea when you go down into edit and then the editor asks you, is this okay if I do this? Because I know on set like what you recorded on set might not like sync up, or something might go out of sync, or a cut might be too weird for dialogue to happen. Can you fix it? So like it's getting that like pre-approval where you're like, okay, no, cool, I see what you want to do, that's perfect, you can do it, and then we'll like figure it out together in sound. So that's like a great collaboration to have with your editor, is understanding the cuts and the tempo and the rhythm of your film, and you can relay that to your own sound post.
I would say on set to have a good relationship with everyone in the technical department. Just like knowing the camera movement, and like if you have a good relationship with them and you're like, look, your footsteps were loud when you did that track or something, they'll be fine with redoing the take. If you don't have a good relationship, they might just ignore you, even though they know sound is needed. They won't necessarily think it's important, but because you don't have that relationship, they won't go the extra way for you.
Yeah, but I feel like for on-set as well, your relationship with your AD is crucial. Your AD is actually the one who actually fights for you on set. So the bond between AD and sound is a crucial one on set.
Agreed. He's going to be the one who's like, quiet!
Yeah.
We're doing room tone.
Yeah.
And then everybody has to listen.
Yeah.
What is it like at different levels of budget for
I'll give you an example in my case where I'll take the Mzansi Magic film and the web series I worked on. The web series, I did not get paid for that. And then, obviously the Mzansi Magic film had a budget. So the one major difference that I saw was that for those productions that don't have budgets, they always expect you to go above and beyond. And most of the time when they expect you to go above and beyond, it's a thing of there's only so much I can do, There's literally only so much I can do. And then when it comes to a production that has a budget, they respect you in the capacity of they treat you as an HOD of a department. So it's two different worlds.
For more like non-budgeted productions, I've noticed that you have to get your sound perfect on set, because I know with my Mzansi Magic film, and I also did a web series, the editor cut the sound. They don't actually have an audio post-production team. So if you don't get it right on set, it's not like you don't have good audio in your final product.
I've also found on like really low budgets, they don't really know why their quality might be bad if the location, for instance, was loud. They're like, can't we make this less noisy? And we're like, no, we're in a construction site. I can't take out the construction site. And they're like, no, and we also want it tomorrow. Why can't you do this? So yeah, I feel like the bigger the budgets, then like more considerate when it comes to that. But I also feel like the bigger the budget, the less attention on set. Like on set, if you make sure you get what you need done, like talk to the AD, be like, hey, roomtone just now. As long as you do that, it's fine. But if you're on a big budget thing and then you don't say anything, you're going to get lost because there's so much going on.
Yeah. And you're right. Like for big budgets, they give you all the space you need. They literally treat you like an HOD. You're the head of department of sound. They leave you at that. No one's coming to question you about anything. And then you're right. Smaller productions, I had a similar situation. One day it was raining. They came to me, what can you do about, there's nothing I can do about the rain, and it's either we shoot this tomorrow or another day, or we're going to have to use the audio we take today. So you're right.
So what software do you guys use? Have you used any different software? What is sort of your experience with software, sound software?
I've used Logic for like cutting up stuff before. And then I've also used, what's it called? Innuendo, I think it's called. I've tried to use that. Innuendo, that. And that one was super technical to use. And then I've also done something in Fairlight on DaVinci, but it wasn't much. It was just like a little bit of EQing, I think that was it, on DaVinci.
Yeah. That was my experience as with Fairlight in DaVinci. You can't really edit anything in it. It's just adding or doing levels, mixing, and adding plugins. Like you can't really add any tracks. You have to go to the edit tab, and it's a very strange editing or sound workflow in DaVinci. The rest of you guys?
Pro Tools is the only thing I've worked on.
I mainly use Pro Tools. Well, at first I downloaded Pro Tools first until I realized it didn't read properly, and Pro Tools first doesn't come with video. So like, oh, fantastic, I can't tell if it's in sync. So like me and a bunch of people bought Pro Tools. I like it. I know some people don't like it. I know a lot of people who prefer Nuendo. I just haven't used Nuendo. So maybe I'll switch sides, but I enjoy Pro Tools because it's just like a lot of plugins you can use. There's a lot of, like, I think you can have 100 tracks on the Pro Tools that I have, Pro Tools 10. 100 tracks because I'm a maniac and I should probably not do that, but I enjoy it because it just lets you just do more than anything else I've worked with.
Yeah. I used to have hundreds of tracks. I would have like 3, 4, 5 times more tracks than most of the people. And everybody would be like, whoa, why do you have so many tracks? But it's because I put everything in its own track. It's like all these specific footsteps go into their track. I would end up with these tracks, then I'd have to be on the, those two studios had Pro Tools HD. So I physically couldn't work out there because I have too many tracks, and it just feels thicker. When your sound is thick with a few C's, it makes a difference.
So from my experience with Pro Tools, I think it's called Pro Tools Plus. So the normal Pro Tools, you can only have 256 tracks. And when you're mixing a feature film, it's not enough tracks. So yeah, I've never mixed like a feature film out of After. I've only done sound effects. So I would say like depending on what part of audio you're doing, a different type of Pro Tools or type of software. And I also don't want to be that person, but you can't see, but I'm currently recording in Pro Tools.
Nice.
Are there other programs as intensive as Pro Tools? Like I know you mentioned Logic, Nuendo. Are they as intensive? Are they as easy to use as Pro Tools?
Nuendo comes second best in like my opinion in terms of user interface. And the one nice thing I like about Nuendo is I think you can do it on Pro Tools anyway. It's just more technical on Pro Tools. Is like you can like put things into like folders, so you can put like ambiences into a folder and then it drops down into all the tracks. So it makes it like easier to use on like CPU and stuff. That's the only benefit I saw from it. Other than that, it's like...
You can do that in Pro Tools. I think you can only do it in 12.5, but it's kind of like grouping it, and then you have to make it into like this little list thing, and then,
And then, in Nuendo, all the like things that you want to do are like all like finicky, and like you have to go through menus and stuff to find things. So I just say like rather stick to Pro Tools if need be.
And I heard you talk about Logic as well.
Logic's more like
music,
more
right?
like it's focused more. You can use it for like recording stuff into. I know I've recorded Foley into it because like Logic has this nice thing with the Contact Player, and Contact Player have a cool like Foley library you can use, and then you can integrate that with your keyboard, and then you can like walk with your keyboard, like do footsteps with your keyboard. It's really cool. Look it up. It's Contact's Foley library. That's the only really cool thing you can do from Logic's point
Sounds
of view.
dope.
I know Alex uses Cubase, and he does that in Cubase.
Does he use Cubase for sound design as well, not just music?
Yeah, he uses Cubase in Ableton.
There's also Adobe Audition, but Adobe Audition
Your Audition sucks.
average.
Your Audition is the worst. I tried because I had my Pro Tools license and I had to cancel it because I wasn't using it often enough to justify. And I tried using Audition, and it's it's the worst. I'd rather use DaVinci than Audition. I've been doing a lot of my sound work just in Premiere Pro, in the editing program. It actually has a lot of cool like plugins and stuff you can add the same way you'd add it in Pro Tools. Obviously, it's the default Pro Tools plugins are so much better because that's what they're made for. But when I bought a couple of plugins, and I've just been mainly not for short forms. For short forms, I still like to just get my Pro Tools license for a month. But for any sort of video or client work or whatever, if it's a low-paying job, or if it doesn't need Pro Tools, I'll just use Premiere.
There's one more. There's one called Studio One as well. That one's also pretty dope, I've heard.
I've never used it.
I own Studio One because I use PreSonus, like the audio box and my mic and everything. But for me, it's a lot easier for music to use Studio One, not for sound.
Okay, so let's end it off with maybe you guys can just give some, just some words for aspiring sound people. What would you have wanted to tell yourself before you decided this is what the thing that I'm going to do professionally?
I'd say people may not always take you seriously when you're working, but when you're in the cinema, it's all worth it. It's all worth it.
Yeah.
I would say to them, or to my like younger self, watch as many films as possible and read up as much as you possibly can. There are hundreds of books about sound design and Foley and
definitely
beautiful things out there on the internet that you can find, and just put your mind into that and
definitely
stop doing research into sound.
I would say like not to give up. Like sound jobs are very scarce, and just to learn to have a thick skin and persevere, because when you do get that project, and like Natasha said, when you watch it in cinemas, nothing beats that.
Well, on my part, I'd like to say it's also, it goes along with passion as well. If you don't like sound in any way or form, you will not enjoy it at all. So my advice is, if you really want to do sound, at least, have a passion for it, or at least have some tangible love for it, and you'll be A-okay.
So thank you so much, Natasha, Peluyame, Alyssa, and Kevin. This was such a great conversation. I'm so happy we had it. Thank you guys so much. So
Pleasure.
Insightful. So
thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe.
So thanks to Peluyame, Natasha, Kevin, and Alyssa for their awesome insights into sound.
If you made it to the end of this video and you're not subscribed, like, bro, what are you doing? Just press the button. It's free. It's not going to cost you anything. And we make new videos every Tuesday and every Friday with a new short film on the first Friday of every month. So, you know what? We make movies. You see how we make movies. We talk about the movies. We show you how we edit them. We show you how we write them. It's just fun, So just press the button. And if you press that little bell button, you'll be notified every time it comes out. So definitely press it. So let us know in the comments what you got from that conversation, or if you want to go into sound as your profession. We'll try our best to answer any questions that you might have. So yeah, leave us a like, and until next time, stay inside. Make your movie.